They destroyed our colonies. Humanity retaliated without mercy. The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of New Eden as Sarah Chen walked through her family's farm. 3 generations of her bloodline had worked this soil on humanity's first successful colony world. The golden grain swayed gently in the artificial breeze created by the atmospheric processors, a sight that still filled her with wonder even after 23 years of life here. Her wrist communicator buzzed with an incoming transmission from her brother Marcus, stationed aboard the orbital defense platform. His face appeared in the holographic display, but something was wrong. His usual easy smile was replaced by a grim expression she had never seen before. "Sarah, you need to get everyone to the shelters now," Marcus said, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching the system. Ships, Sarah, hundreds of them." Before she could respond, the sky above New Eden began to change. What had been a peaceful blue atmosphere started to shimmer and distort as massive shapes emerged from hyperspace. The alien vessels were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, their hulls a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each ship stretched for kilometers, dwarfing even Earth's largest dreadnoughts. Sarah dropped her tablet and ran toward the settlement, her heart pounding as emergency sirens began wailing across the colony. Behind her, the first beams of crimson energy lanced down from the alien fleet, turning her family's farmhouse into a pillar of flame and ash. The attack on New Eden lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, nothing remained of the thriving colony of 800,000 souls except craters of fused glass and the twisted remains of what had once been homes, schools, and dreams of a better future. 3 days later, similar attacks struck humanity's other outer colonies. Kepler's hope, with its floating cities above gas giant clouds, was reduced to burning debris. The mining stations of Asteroid Belt 7 simply vanished, their crews vaporized along with billions of tons of processed minerals. New Cardiff's underground cities offered no protection when the aliens deployed weapons that turned solid rock into molten slag. The pattern was always the same. No warnings, no demands, no attempts at communication. The alien fleets would emerge from hyperspace, methodically destroy every trace of human presence, then disappear back into the void. Within 2 weeks, 16 colony worlds and their combined population of 37 million people had been erased from existence. Admiral Catherine Shaw stood in the war room aboard the UES Prometheus, humanity's most advanced battlecruiser, studying the tactical displays that showed the devastation. Around the table sat the surviving military commanders and government leaders who had managed to escape the outer colonies before the attacks reached them. "We've tried every form of communication we know," reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the Xenolinguistics Department. "Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, even basic pictographs. They don't respond to anything. They just kill." General Robert Hayes, his weathered face showing the strain of losing 3 sons in the colony attacks, slammed his fist on the table. "Then we give them the same courtesy they've shown us. No warnings, no mercy." "We can't match their firepower," Admiral Shaw replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of their situation. "Their ships are larger, their weapons more advanced. Every engagement we've had with their scouts has ended in our defeat." "Then we don't fight them ship to ship," said Dr. Michael Torres, a theoretical physicist who had been studying the aliens' technology from recovered debris. "We fight them the way humans have always fought when facing superior force. We get creative." The room fell silent as Torres activated a holographic display showing the molecular structure of the alien hull material. "Their ships are incredibly advanced, but they follow the same physical laws we do. Their hulls are composed of a crystalline lattice that makes them nearly impervious to energy weapons, but there's a weakness." He manipulated the display, zooming in on the atomic level. The lattice structure requires precise harmonic frequencies to maintain its integrity. If we can generate the right resonance pattern, we can shatter their hulls like a wine glass hit by a soprano's high note. Admiral Shaw leaned forward, studying the data. How long would it take to develop weapons based on this principle? 6 months, maybe less if we redirect all our research resources, Torres replied. But there's something else. The attack patterns suggest these aliens have done this before. The precision, the coordination, the complete lack of interest in conquest rather than extermination. They're not expanding their territory or seeking resources. They're eliminating what they see as a threat. President Elena Martinez, who had been silent throughout the briefing, finally spoke. What kind of threat could humanity pose to beings with such advanced technology? The kind that comes from being unpredictable, Torres answered. Every alien species we've encountered through archaeological evidence shows signs of following predictable evolutionary and technological paths. But humans? We're chaotic, innovative, and utterly illogical by galactic standards. We make art out of suffering, turn disasters into opportunities, and refuse to give up even when facing certain death. To a species that values order and predictability, we might represent an existential threat to their entire worldview. General Hayes stood up, pacing to the viewport where the stars seemed cold and hostile. So they decided to eliminate us before we could become a bigger problem. That's my theory, Torres confirmed. But they made one crucial mistake. They announced their intentions by attacking our colonies. Now we know what we're facing, and humans are at their most dangerous when they know they're fighting for survival. Admiral Shaw turned to her communications officer. Send a coded transmission to every human fleet, every station, every hidden outpost. Priority Alpha. Tell them we're going underground. No more open engagements. No more trying to protect fixed positions. From now on, we're ghosts. The next phase of the war began with humanity doing what it had always done best when facing extinction: adapt. Military bases were abandoned and their equipment relocated to hidden asteroids and rogue planets. Civilian populations were evacuated to underground complexes and space habitats disguised as cosmic debris. The aliens continued their systematic advance toward Earth, destroying every obvious sign of human presence they encountered. But they began to find empty worlds and abandoned stations, their sensors unable to detect the carefully concealed human settlements that now dotted the galaxy like hidden seeds. Captain Lisa Park commanded one of humanity's new stealth frigates, vessels built using a combination of human engineering and alien technology salvaged from their destroyed scouts. Her ship, the Whisper, was tasked with reconnaissance missions deep in alien-controlled space. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported her sensor operator. Alien destroyer, Gorgon class, moving at half impulse toward the Centauri system. Park studied the tactical display. The alien ship was massive compared to her frigate, but it was alone and following a predictable patrol route. Launch the resonance mine. Let's see if Dr. Torres was right about their hull frequencies. The mine drifted silently through space, its passive sensors analyzing the harmonic patterns of the alien ship's hull. When the destroyer passed within 50 meters, the mine activated, generating a precise acoustic wave that propagated through the alien vessel's structure. The effect was immediate and devastating. The kilometer-long ship simply came apart, its hull fracturing along crystalline stress lines as the resonance frequency tore apart the molecular bonds holding it together. Debris scattered across space, but there were no escape pods, no survivors. The aliens, it seemed, preferred death to capture. Target destroyed, Park reported to Fleet Command. Resonance weapons are effective. Request permission to begin harassment operations. Admiral Shaw's reply came 12 hours later. Permission granted. All stealth units are authorized to engage targets of opportunity. Remember, we're not trying to win battles. We're making them afraid. The guerrilla war that followed became the stuff of legend. Human ships would appear from nowhere, destroy alien vessels with their new resonance weapons, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Supply convoys were ambushed. Communication relays were sabotaged, and isolated alien outposts simply disappeared overnight. The aliens adapted, traveling in larger groups and sweeping areas with intensive sensor scans. But humans adapted faster, developing new stealth technologies and hit-and-run tactics that turned every star system into a potential ambush site. Dr. Torres, now working from a hidden laboratory built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, made another breakthrough. Analysis of alien survivors from a damaged ship revealed that they were not a single species, but a collective of conquered races under the control of beings they called the hegemony. The hegemony conquered over 300 species by offering them a choice, Torres explained during a secure video conference with military leadership. Submit to their order and live as servants, or resist and face complete extinction. Most species chose servitude. But not all? Admiral Shaw asked. No, not all. The ones who resisted were hunted down and eliminated, their worlds sterilized, their cultures erased. The hegemony has been doing this for thousands of years, building their empire on the bones of the free-willed. President Martinez, now operating from a hidden bunker on Europa, leaned forward. How many species have they conquered? Based on the data we've recovered, we estimate over 300 sentient species serve the hegemony directly, with thousands more in various stages of integration. They control roughly a quarter of this galaxy. The weight of that revelation settled over the human leadership like a shroud. They were not just fighting for humanity's survival, but potentially for the freedom of hundreds of enslaved species. Then we make them pay for every world they've taken, General Hayes declared. We show the galaxy that some species refuse to kneel. The war continued, but something had changed in how humans fought. They were no longer just defending themselves. They were fighting for every species that had been forced to choose between slavery and death. The knowledge that they were potentially the last free sapient species in their region of the galaxy filled humanity with a cold, determined fury that their end no. They destroyed our colonies. Humanity retaliated without mercy. Dr. Michael Torres stood before a massive holographic display showing the galactic arm, red zones marking hegemony-controlled space expanding like a cancer across the star map. 6 months had passed since the guerrilla war began, and humanity had learned to fight like shadows. But shadows, no matter how effective, could not win a war against an empire that controlled 300 species. We've identified 17 different alien species within the hegemony fleet structures, Torres explained to the assembled War Council. But here's what's interesting. The tactical analysis shows that only 3 species appear to make strategic decisions. The others follow orders with mechanical precision. Admiral Shaw studied the data streams flowing across her personal display. You're suggesting they're not all willing participants. I'm suggesting most of them are slaves with neural implants, Torres replied, highlighting brain scan data taken from captured alien crew members. The hegemony doesn't just conquer species, Catherine. They lobotomize them. These implants suppress free will, creativity, independent thought. They turn living beings into biological robots. President Martinez's face appeared on the main screen from her hidden command center. Can the implants be removed? We think so, but it's delicate work. The implants are designed to kill the host if tampered with incorrectly. Torres switched to medical scanner images. However, we've had some success with a species called the Kythera. They were aquatic beings before their conquest. We managed to remove the implants from 3 survivors we captured, and they've provided invaluable intelligence about hegemony operations. One of the liberated Kythera, A being named Shalthis, whose translator gave her a melodic voice despite her tentacled appearance, stepped forward. My people remember freedom. We remember when we chose our own paths among the deep currents of our world. The hegemony took that choice away, made us forget ourselves. But you humans, you fight like the storms of our ancient legends. You give hope where there was only darkness. General Hayes leaned back in his chair. What can they tell us about hegemony command structure? Shalthis gestured with elegant tentacles as holographic images appeared above the conference table. The hegemony is ruled by the core species, the ones who began this empire of chains. They call themselves the Eternal Order. They are beings of pure logic, incapable of creative thought or adaptation. This is why they fear species like yours. The images showed creatures that looked more like geometric crystalline structures than living beings. They conquered their first slaves because they lacked the ability to innovate. Each species they absorbed added new capabilities to their collective. But humans are different. You create solutions they cannot predict or understand. Admiral Shaw studied the alien command ship designs. What about their central command? Where do they coordinate their fleets from? The Nexus, Shalthis replied, her translated voice carrying what seemed like ancient fear. A massive station built from the heart of a dead star. It contains the Central Archive, where they store the knowledge and memories stolen from every conquered species. It also houses the Prime Controllers, the core species members who direct all hegemony operations. Torres manipulated the holographic display, bringing up energy readings from deep space sensor arrays. We've been tracking massive energy signatures from that region. If we could strike at this nexus, it's defended by 10,000 ships and protected by barrier fields that can stop stellar-level weapons, Shalthis interrupted. No force in the galaxy has ever successfully attacked it. No force in the galaxy has ever been desperate enough, General Hayes replied grimly. What would happen to the hegemony if this nexus were destroyed? The command network would collapse. Ships would lose coordination. Species with newer implants might break free entirely. Shalthis paused, her tentacles swirling in what Torres had learned was a sign of deep thought. But the chaos would also trigger automatic extermination protocols. Every world with significant resistance movements would be sterilized. President Martinez's image leaned forward. How many worlds are we talking about? Thousands. Perhaps tens of thousands. The hegemony has never fully trusted their conquered populations. The War Council fell silent as the implications sank in. A successful strike against the Nexus could free hundreds of species, but it might also trigger the largest genocide in galactic history. We need more information, Admiral Shaw finally decided. If we're going to do this, we need to know exactly how their command systems work and how to prevent those extermination protocols from activating. Torres nodded. I'll work with our Cathera allies to identify other species that might be candidates for liberation. If we can build a coalition— No, interrupted Captain Lisa Park, who had been silent throughout the briefing. Her stealth frigate Whisper had just returned from a reconnaissance mission deep in hegemony space. We can't wait to build coalitions. I've seen what they're doing out there. She activated her mission recordings, and the holographic display filled with images that made even hardened military officers recoil. Entire star systems were being converted into massive industrial complexes. Planets were being strip-mined down to their cores, their populations relocated to labor camps that stretched across continents. They're not just conquering territory anymore, Park continued. They're harvesting it. Every world they take is being consumed to build more ships, more weapons, more infrastructure for expansion. At their current rate, they'll reach the galactic core within 50 years. After that, there won't be anyone left to resist them, Torres finished quietly. Admiral Shaw stood up, her decision crystallizing. Then we don't wait. We strike at the Nexus, but we do it smart. We turn their own tactics against them. She began outlining humanity's most audacious plan yet. Instead of a direct assault on the Nexus, they would infiltrate hegemony space by disguising human ships as captured alien vessels. Teams of liberated aliens would pose as loyal servants while human commandos hid in shielded compartments. "We'll need to capture a major hegemony facility first," Shaw explained. "Something big enough to justify a direct report to the Nexus, but isolated enough that we can take it without triggering fleet-wide alerts." Torres pulled up sensor data from recent reconnaissance missions. The hegemony maintains massive processing centers where they break down conquered populations for implantation. There's one in the Vega system, designated Facility Prime 7. It processes roughly 50,000 beings per day. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 50,000 sentient beings every single day, their minds destroyed and rebuilt to serve the hegemony's vision of perfect order. "That's our target," Admiral Shaw declared. "We take Facility Prime 7, liberate its population, and use it as our stepping stone to the Nexus. But this won't be a hit-and-run mission. We'll need to hold the facility long enough to extract detailed intelligence about Nexus operations." General Hayes studied the tactical data. "The facility is defended by a full battle group, 12 heavy cruisers plus support vessels. Our entire stealth fleet couldn't take that in open combat." "Then we don't fight them in open combat," Captain Park replied, a dangerous smile crossing her face. "We fight them like humans." The plan that emerged was typical of human military thinking, complex, risky, and completely unpredictable by hegemony standards. Instead of attacking the facility directly, they would infiltrate the processing stream itself. Volunteer human prisoners would surrender to hegemony patrols, carrying concealed resonance weapons in their bodies. The hegemony's arrogance worked in humanity's favor. They saw captured humans as just another species to be processed, not as potential threats. The volunteers would allow themselves to be taken to Facility Prime 7, then activate their weapons from inside the installation's most heavily protected areas. Meanwhile, liberated Kythera agents would use stolen hegemony access codes to disable the facility's communication arrays, preventing calls for reinforcement. Human stealth ships would move into position around the system, ready to eliminate the defending fleet once the facility's shields went down. "The timing has to be perfect," Torres warned as they finalized the plan. "If any part of this fails, we lose our only chance at the Nexus, and 50,000 beings die for nothing." Admiral Shaw looked around the table at her commanders, seeing the same grim determination reflected in every face. "Then we don't fail. Humanity has never been good at accepting impossible odds anyway." 3 weeks later, the operation began. 12 human volunteers, including Sarah Chen, whose family had died on New Eden, allowed themselves to be captured by hegemony patrols. Each carried molecular-level resonance devices implanted in their bone marrow, undetectable by standard scanners, but capable of generating the precise frequencies needed to shatter hegemony technology. As they were transported to Facility Prime 7, Sarah studied her fellow prisoners through the holding cells. Beings from dozens of species huddled together, their eyes showing the vacant stare of those about to lose their identity forever. Some were recent captures, still fighting against their restraints. Others sat motionless, as if they had already accepted their fate. The facility itself was a monument to the hegemony's efficiency. Massive structures of black metal stretched across the surface of what had once been a garden world. The processing centers could handle millions of subjects simultaneously, their neural implantation procedures refined over thousands of years of practice. Sarah's group was taken to Processing Bay 7, where hundreds of beings lay on surgical tables while robotic systems installed the mind control implants. The sight filled her with a rage so pure it threatened to overwhelm her training. These weren't enemy soldiers. They were innocent civilians whose only crime was belonging to species the hegemony wanted to control. The signal came at exactly 14:30 Galactic Standard Time. Sarah triggered her implanted resonance device, feeling the molecular vibrations spread through her bones and into the surrounding metal structure. Around the facility, 11 other volunteers did the same. The effect was catastrophic. Facility Prime 7 had been built using the same crystalline technology as hegemony ships, and the resonance weapons tore through its structure like paper. Walls collapsed, power grids failed, and the neural implantation systems exploded in cascades of sparks and flame. As emergency lighting bathed the facility in red, Sarah and her team moved to their secondary objectives. The volunteer prisoners became liberators, using weapons hidden in the debris to free thousands of beings from the processing tables. Many were unconscious from the partially completed implantation procedures, but they were still free. Still themselves. Outside, the hegemony battle group found itself under attack by an enemy they couldn't see. Human stealth ships emerged from the asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres, their resonance weapons turning the proud alien vessels into expanding clouds of debris. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, Facility Prime 7 was in human hands, its databases intact and its liberated population ready to join the fight against their former captors. But the real prize was the intelligence they discovered in the facility's central computers. Complete schematics of the Nexus, detailed information about hegemony command protocols, and most importantly, the location of the kill switches that could prevent the extermination protocols from activating. Admiral Shaw stood in the facility's command center, now converted into a human operation base, studying the stolen data. "We can do this," she told her assembled commanders. "The Nexus is heavily defended, but its builders never considered the possibility of an attack from within their own command structure." Torres highlighted key points in the Nexus schematics. "If we can reach the central archive and upload a virus into their network, we can turn their own control systems against them. Instead of triggering extermination protocols, we can broadcast liberation codes to every implanted being in hegemony space." "How many beings are we talking about?" President Martinez asked from her secure connection. Torres paused, double-checking his calculations. "Conservative estimate? 300 billion sentient beings across 8,000 star systems. If this works, we'll be freeing the largest population of slaves in HFY. They destroyed our colonies. Humanity retaliated without mercy." The Nexus hung in the void like a crystalline cancer, its surface reflecting the light of the captured star that powered its massive bulk. Admiral Catherine Shaw stood on the bridge of the disguised hegemony heavy cruiser, watching humanity's ultimate target grow larger on the main display. After months of preparation, infiltration, and sacrifice, they were finally here. "Contact from Nexus Control," reported Communications Officer Jang, her voice steady despite the magnitude of their deception. "They're requesting our authorization codes and manifest data." Shaw nodded to Shal This, who had spent weeks perfecting her impersonation of a loyal hegemony commander. The liberated Kythera stepped forward, her tentacles moving in precise patterns as she transmitted the stolen codes they had taken from Facility Prime 7. "Nexus Control, this is Battle Group Epsilon 7 reporting successful pacification of Sector 449, Shal This said in perfect hegemony dialect. "We carry priority cargo for immediate processing by the Central Archive." The response came after a tense 30-second delay. "Acknowledged, Epsilon 7. You are cleared for docking at Hub 7. Prepare for standard biological scans." Shaw felt her heart skip, but their preparation held. The human infiltrators had been placed in specially shielded compartments that would register as empty space to hegemony sensors. The priority cargo consisted of carefully prepared false data that would require high-level analysis, giving their team access to the archive itself. As their disguised ship approached the docking hub, Shaw marveled at the scale of the Nexus. The station stretched for thousands of kilometers in all directions, its surface covered with docking ports, weapon emplacements, and the geometric structures favored by the core species. Somewhere within that maze of crystalline corridors lay the central archive and the command codes that could free 300 billion enslaved beings. "Bioscan complete," Zhang reported. "They're not detecting our hidden personnel. Captain Park's stealth modifications are holding." The docking process took another hour, during which Shaw reviewed the mission parameters one final time. 3 separate teams would deploy simultaneously. Shaw herself would lead the infiltration of the Central Archive, General Hayes would secure the Nexus Command Center, and Dr. Torres would plant resonance charges at key structural points to ensure the station's destruction if their primary mission failed. "Remember," Shaw addressed her team through their neural communicators, "we get one shot at this. The moment we're discovered, every hegemony fleet in the galaxy will converge on this position. We need to upload the Liberation virus and transmit the freedom codes before they can stop us." As the docking clamps engaged with their ship, Shaw felt the weight of 37 million dead colonists pressing down on her shoulders. Sarah Chen, now a hardened commando after her experience at Facility Prime 7, placed a hand on the Admiral's shoulder. "We'll make them pay, Admiral," Sarah said quietly. "For New Eden, for all the worlds they burned, for every mind they enslaved. Today, humanity shows the galaxy what happens when you murder innocent people." The team disembarked into the sterile corridors of the Nexus, their disguises holding perfectly as they passed hegemony security checkpoints. Hundreds of different species moved through the passages, all bearing the vacant expressions of the neural implanted. Shaw felt sick watching them, knowing that beneath those empty stares were millions of suppressed personalities, dreams, and hopes. The Central Archive lay at the heart of the station, protected by layers of security that had been considered impregnable for millennia. But the hegemony's arrogance worked against them. They had never conceived of an enemy who could think beyond their rigid tactical doctrines. "Archive security is based on biological recognition," Torres explained through their secure channel. "They identify authorized personnel by analyzing their neural implants, but our Kithara allies have learned to mimic those signals. Shalthis led them through the final checkpoint, her modified neural patterns convincing the security systems that she was a high-ranking archive administrator. The massive doors dilated open, revealing a chamber that took Shaw's breath away. The Central Archive stretched upward for kilometers, its walls covered with crystalline storage matrices that held the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of conquered civilizations. Floating platforms carried core species administrators between levels, their geometric forms pulsing with the cold light of pure logic. "My God," whispered Dr. Torres, his scientific mind overwhelmed by the scope of stolen knowledge surrounding them. "They've recorded everything: art, literature, scientific discoveries, cultural memories. This is the preserved essence of every species they've destroyed." Shaw forced herself to focus on the mission. "Where's the main control interface?" Shalthis pointed with a graceful tentacle toward the archive's center, where a massive crystalline structure pulsed with data streams. "The prime interface. It connects to every neural implant in hegemony space. If we can upload our virus there, then 300 billion slaves become free beings again," Shaw finished. "Let's move." They made their way through the archive levels, passing displays of stolen cultural artifacts from thousands of worlds. Shaw saw musical instruments from species that no longer existed, art from civilizations reduced to ash, and scientific formulas that represented the final thoughts of murdered researchers. Each display was a monument to the hegemony's crimes against sapient life. The prime interface was guarded by a single core species administrator, its crystalline form radiating the absolute certainty that characterized their race. As they approached, Shaw could feel its attention focusing on them like a cold laser. "Your presence here requires clarification," the core species being stated, its translated voice carrying no emotion whatsoever. Archive access by non-prime entities is restricted without direct authorization from the Control Collective. Shalthis moved forward, her tentacles weaving in the complex patterns of hegemony formal communication. Authorization code Omega Prime 7. We carry data from Facility Prime 7, requiring immediate integration into the archive matrix. The core species administrator paused, its form shifting slightly as it processed this information. Shaw held her breath, knowing that their stolen codes were their only protection against discovery. Clarification. Facility Prime 7 was reported destroyed by terrorist action 47 cycles ago. This data claim appears to be erroneous. Shaw's heart sank, but Sarah Chen stepped forward before anyone could react. Clarification accepted, she said calmly. We are the terrorists who destroyed Facility Prime 7. We are humans, and we have come to free your slaves. The core species being had no time to react before Sarah triggered her hidden resonance weapon. The administrator's crystalline form shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Its logical mind unable to process the concept of beings who would willingly reveal their true nature while surrounded by enemies. Alarms began wailing throughout the archive as security systems detected the administrator's destruction. Shaw ran toward the Prime interface, knowing they had minutes at most before hegemony forces swarmed their position. Torres, get those resonance charges planted, she commanded. Hayes, we need that command center secured now. General Hayes's voice crackled through their communicators from deep within the station. Command center under assault. Heavy resistance, but we're holding position. How long do you need? Shaw reached the Prime interface and began connecting Dr. Torres's specially designed virus upload device to the crystalline control matrix. 5 minutes for the virus upload, then another 10 for the liberation codes to propagate through their network. You've got 3 minutes before this place is crawling with core species reinforcements, Hayes replied, the sound of weapons fire audible in the background. Torres worked frantically to modify the interface's security protocols while Shaw uploaded humanity's gift to the enslaved galaxy. The virus was a masterpiece of human innovation, designed to turn the hegemony's own control systems against them. Instead of suppressing free will, the neural implants would enhance it, breaking the chains that had bound billions of minds for thousands of years. Upload complete, Shaw reported, beginning liberation code transmission. Across the galaxy, the virus began its work, on thousands of worlds. In massive space stations and mining operations and factory complexes, neural implants suddenly changed their function. Enslaved beings blinked in confusion as their suppressed personalities reasserted themselves. Kithara remembered their ocean homeworlds. Rigelian miners recalled their songs. Altarian artists felt the return of their creative fire. The uprising was immediate and overwhelming. Hegemony administrators found themselves facing revolts by billions of suddenly free beings who remembered exactly what had been done to them. On the industrial world of Kepler Prime, former slaves used their knowledge of the manufacturing systems to convert weapon factories into production centers for liberation equipment. In the Vega system, the entire hegemony fleet found their support staff turning against them. But the core species were not defenseless. As reports of system-wide revolts flooded into the Nexus, they activated their final contingency protocol. If they could not rule the galaxy through enslaved beings, they would purge it of all sapient life. Shaw, we've got a problem, Torres called out as he monitored the archive's data streams. They're activating some kind of stellar manipulation system. They're going to trigger supernovas in populated systems. Admiral Shaw felt a chill of absolute terror. The core species, facing the loss of their empire, were attempting to commit genocide on a galactic scale. How many systems? All of them, Torres replied, his voice hollow with shock. They're targeting every star with inhabited planets. They're going to kill everyone rather than lose control. Shaw stared at the tactical display showing thousands of stars marked for destruction. The core species had prepared for this contingency over millennia, building weapons capable of destabilizing stellar cores across vast distances. In their logical minds, if they could not possess perfect order, then nothing should exist at all. Not today, Shaw said grimly, and began typing commands into the Prime interface. If they want to destroy the galaxy, they'll have to go through humanity first. She began redirecting the stellar manipulation weapons, turning them away from populated systems and toward the Nexus itself. The core species had built their ultimate weapon to destroy others, but like all tyrants, they had never considered that it might be turned against them. "Admiral, what are you doing?" Torres asked as the station shuddered around them. "Giving the core species exactly what they deserve," Shaw replied. "A front-row seat to their own extinction." The stellar weapons designed to destroy distant suns, instead, began tearing apart the captured star that powered the Nexus. The ancient stellar core, held stable for thousands of years by core species technology, began to destabilize as the manipulation fields overloaded its fusion processes. "All teams, immediate evacuation," Shaw commanded. "We have approximately 8 minutes before this star goes supernova." General Hayes's team fought their way back to the docking bay through corridors filled with panicking core species administrators. These beings of pure logic had never experienced fear before, but facing the destruction of their perfect order filled them with something approaching terror. As Shaw's team ran through the archive chambers, Shalthis paused at one of the cultural displays. "Admiral, wait!" she called out. "These memory crystals contain the preserved consciousness of my people's greatest artists and philosophers. If we leave them here—" "They die with their murderers," Shaw finished. "Grab what you can carry, but we leave in 30 seconds. The escape from the Nexus became a desperate race against stellar collapse. Their disguised ship launched from the docking bay as the captured star began its final death throes, its surface erupting with solar flares that vaporized anything within 10,000 kilometers. But even as they fled, Shaw monitored the liberation codes still propagating across the galaxy. The freedom virus had taken hold, and no amount of core species logic could stop it now. 300 billion enslaved minds were remembering who they had been before the chains were forged. The supernova that consumed the Nexus sent a shockwave of energy and debris across space, but its true impact was measured in the collapse of the hegemony itself. Without their central command structure and their enslaved populations, the core species empire crumbled within days. On Earth, President Martinez stood before a gathering of representatives from newly freed species, watching as former enemies became allies in the work of rebuilding what the hegemony had destroyed. The galaxy was free, but the cost had been enormous. Billions had died in the uprising, entire systems had been devastated in the fighting, and the work of healing would take generations. "The core species are extinct," Admiral Shaw reported to the assembly. "Their home systems have been evacuated, their technology dismantled. They chose death rather than coexistence." An aged Kithara diplomat, one of the few who remembered life before the conquest, spoke for the assembled representatives. "Humanity could have chosen to simply escape the hegemony's reach. Instead, you chose to free us all. Why?" Shaw thought of Sarah Chen, now helping to coordinate refugee settlements on a dozen worlds. She thought of the 37 million colonists who had died in the initial attacks, and the billions more who had suffered under hegemony rule. "Because that's what humans do," Shaw replied simply. "When we see innocent suffering, we don't walk away. When we see tyrants crushing the weak, we fight back. When we're told something is impossible, we prove everyone wrong." The former slave species began to applaud, a sound that echoed through the chamber and across the subspace networks to liberated worlds throughout the galaxy. Humanity had kept its promise. The colonies had been avenged, the slaves had been freed, and the galaxy's greatest empire of oppression had been brought to its knees. But perhaps the most important legacy was what came after. In the years that followed, the freed species worked together to build something the galaxy had never seen. A true confederation of equals, where every species contributed their unique strengths without surrendering their identity. The humans who had started this revolution as fugitives hiding in asteroids found themselves serving as mediators and innovators in the new galactic community. Their unpredictability, once seen as a threat by the hegemony, became their greatest asset in solving the complex problems of reconstruction. And on the monument erected at the site where New Eden had once stood, a simple inscription captured the essence of humanity's gift to the galaxy. In memory of 37 million souls who died free, and in honor of 300 billion souls who chose to live free. Some chains can only be broken by those who refuse to wear them. The galaxy was free, and humanity had shown the universe that even the smallest species could change everything when they refused to accept injustice. The hegemony had destroyed humanity's colonies, seeking to eliminate a perceived threat. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, the human conviction that freedom was worth any price, and that no tyrant, no matter how powerful, could stand against people who refused to kneel. The war was over. The real work of building a better galaxy had just begun. A lactic history. The magnitude of what they were attempting finally hit home. Humanity, a species that had been considered nothing more than an irritating pest to be exterminated, was planning to topple a galactic empire and liberate hundreds of enslaved species. The core species won't survive this, Shalthus observed. Their entire civilization is based on controlling others. Without their slaves, they have no innovation, no adaptation, no ability to maintain their technology. They will become extinct. Admiral Shaw considered this. The hegemony had shown no mercy to humanity, had murdered 37 million innocents without warning or provocation. They had tried to commit genocide against every free-thinking species they encountered. Good, she said finally. Some empires deserve to fall. The final phase of humanity's war against the hegemony was about to begin. Emis had never encountered before. And in the deepest bunkers of Earth, in laboratories hidden among the asteroids of the outer system, human scientists and engineers worked with desperate intensity on weapons and strategies that would bring the fight directly to the hegemony's doorstep. The aliens had wanted to eliminate humanity before it could become a threat. They were about to discover they were already too late.